All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a few attendees on already. We're still, I think, just a few minutes early, so we're going to give everyone just a few more minutes to get dialed in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And then I'll share a few housekeeping notes as well before we kick off. But we're going to have everybody on mute just to make sure we don't have any background noise, but we definitely want this to be an interactive panel. So please, if you have questions, please post them in the chat. I'll be moderating those the whole time, and be sure to share them with the group. But just to make sure we don't have any background noise, we're gonna keep everyone on mute. Give everyone just a few more minutes to get situated, and we'll kick off in just about a minute. All right, looks like we got people still dialing in as we're going, but we have a good number on already. So just to make sure we make the most use of our time, we'll go ahead and get things started. But yeah, thank you everyone for making time to be on our webinar today. We're really looking forward to having an exciting exploration into what I think is a very important topic in senior living today, and that is business intelligence, but specifically looking at business intelligence that doesn't just kind of exist in a silo, but that looks at any of the ancillary software we may be using. So it's going to be a really good webinar. Really appreciative for everyone who's made it on so far. I am going to be joined with Keith Hoover from DashPoint Analytics. We're also going to have Donna Ford on the line as well from Landis Homes. She is another provider in Pennsylvania and actually using the solution as well. So that kind of give us actual firsthand acknowledgement of how the solution is working within Landis Homes. Before we get started formally, just to kind of give a quick recap, my name is Steve VanderVelde. I'm the Director of Senior Living Partnerships at ProviNET. That means I get to work really closely with industry partners like Keith and DashPoint Analytics. I also get to work really closely with our customer base, help them kind of find solutions they may be looking for, get them plugged in with the right team members at ProviNET based on where we may be helping. But for those who aren't aware, ProviNET, we're a full services IT consulting company focused in senior living. And a big reason for that is we're born out of a provider ourselves. So a lot of the solutions that we implement and recommend, we're customers of ourselves. So we're able to bring that level of expertise to it as well. And whether that's a more traditional IT project, or if we're talking more about specialized EHR projects, really proud that we have that breadth of experience. One item that we get asked about quite a lot, though, is what about getting data outside of just my EHR? We do a lot of custom reports within the various EHRs out there, but when we start talking about dashboards and marrying all of our data from disparate solutions together to see what that might be telling us, that's something that ProviNET doesn't do. So that's where we forged the partnership with DashPoint Analytics, and that's why I'm really excited to have Keith on today to kind of talk about his solution, and hopefully for any of our customers out there who are in the market for something like this, come away with some really good takeaways and things to kind of consider. Also, hopefully we get some people interested a little bit more in DashPoint Analytics and how they could help. So from here, I did want to kick it off with an initial question to you, Keith, just to kind of let you further introduce yourself. But when I first met you, you weren't with DashPoint Analytics yet. I think it was maybe just a glimmer in your eye there somewhere that I personally wasn't aware of. But could you maybe give us a recount of your background and what made you come up with the idea for DashPoint Analytics?
Sure thing. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah, I hear
Okay,
you great.
great. Well, first of all, just thank you for the opportunity to chat today. And I saw a little bit of the attendance list. I saw some familiar names and some new ones as well. So it's exciting to see that. But yeah, my background, I've been in the post-acute care, more specifically CCRCs, life plan communities for almost 20 years. I actually started as a software developer at a retirement community here in Lancaster, Willow Valley Retirement, and they were using a old AS400 green screen database for their CRM solution. So my task was to sort of bring that from green screen to a more user-friendly interface. Spent a number of years there and then transitioned over to Pleasant View Communities, also here in Lancaster County, and was there for the 15 years. More recently, was serving as their VP of Strategy and Technology. And I know we have a number of IT folks on the call today, and in my role at Pleasant View, one of the tensions I was having was that senior leadership as well as frontline staff needed better insight into the data they had, not only in their EHR, but across, in our scenario, we had pushing almost 20 different systems if we're taking account for restaurant point of sales, you name it, call bell systems, all of those systems. And every application provider was offering their own analytics or their own custom reporting package that you could tack on, but it still meant that there were data silos and people had to sign in and be educated on different systems to interact with their data. So out of that, I piloted with Pleasant View some analytics solutions that sort of unified all those systems, gathered them together, and one thing led to another. And about 18 months ago, started DashPoint Analytics, which really is, you could say, it was equal part a passion of mine, but also a frustration with the options I had in my role as VP of IT there at Pleasant View. So that's a little bit of my background. So I feel like I'm familiar with this industry, but yeah, excited to show you what we can do. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Keith. And I think that background is so important. I think that's where we kind of draw a lot of clout from. Is we aren't just focused working with providers, but we are coming from one as well. And I think when we have other solutions or other partners like that who have that same upbringing and that same focus, where senior living is kind of their meat and potatoes, that's where we get really excited. So it's always good to see partners who are kind of growing up in the industry as well and born out of it. So that's awesome. But I know that we want to get into the meat of the webinar here, and I think what probably most people are excited about is seeing some of the solution in action, seeing what it actually looks like, and get them an idea of what is possible when you have a tool like this. And like we said, when I think of business intelligence, I really try to think of it as a holistic approach. We're breaking down those silos. We're looking at data across various platforms, and that's something that I found really exciting about DashPoint Analytics, is that you guys were already doing that from the get-go. Is it possible, maybe just to kind of get us started on the demo, to kind of give us an example of one dashboard or one part of the solution where you think it kind of showcases an area where you are blending data and that might have a really big impact on providers? And
sure, yeah.
While you're queuing that up, I want to remind all of our attendees too, we very much want this to be an interactive webinar, and we want to be able to have you ask questions to Keith as well, anything about how this works in the background, what type of data you may be looking for. If we can demo it, that would be awesome. So please, if you have questions, we're going to keep everyone on mute just to keep the background noise to a minimum. But if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that and make sure we get any of those questions posed to Keith and take it from there. All right, but yeah, Keith, I'll stop talking with there, and hopefully you can show us one of those dashboards.
Yeah, and just to sort of set the stage a little bit, I think it's important to rather than me just go into a demo, to give you sort of the real world scenario that we were dealing with. The example that comes to mind is a client that was indicating they wanted to take a little bit better look into staffing on their individual nursing units. And they had one particular unit that was indicating they were overwhelmed and unable to complete all their med pass and their meals and their various ADLs on that unit. But meanwhile, in that same organization, other floors were saying, we're doing just fine. And maybe they're just inefficient or lazy or something else. And so naturally, what do we typically look for with staffing in our industry? It's hours per patient day, hours per resident day. And I'm sure many of you on this webinar are checking your HPPD regularly and of course know how it can impact your star rating. But unfortunately, what is missing from that metric is often the resident's acuity level or their ADL assistance requirements. Because obviously a person who is more high functioning doesn't need two persons assistance for meals or to transfer or to make it to the toilet, whatever else. And so in the scenario I provided, this particular facility had a floor that was overwhelmed, but also that particular floor had the highest HPPD of any of the other floors. So if you look at just the metric, what are they complaining about? Well, we decided to layer in acuity level to get a better sense of each floor and how HPPD is impacted by the acuity level of that resident population. So I'm sure everybody's eager to actually see what I'm talking about. Are you seeing my screen right now? Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
we can see it.
Just a little bit of, before I actually show you the dashboard, I just want to talk a little bit about the platform itself, and then I'll get into it. Essentially, we are a web-based application. And I'll point out right up here, any of you that are interested and would like to sort of play around with this on your own time, no pressure, can visit this demo.dashpointanalytics.com and hit create account. You fill in your email address and you're immediately in and can start playing around with some of our example dashboards directly. But with that said, essentially this portal allows you to administer users across your organization, give them access to different dashboards, and it's all managed within our portal. And it can do single sign-on with Microsoft Office 365. We can integrate with Google, so you're not having to remember yet another password. So let me go ahead and get in. Since that's what most people are here for. And I am going to go to our HPRD by acuity. And as that's loading, let me just point out that the list we have here on the left is not a comprehensive list. These are just samples of some of the dashboards that we provide. And really, the pricing model is set up in such a way that you pay for a block of 6 dashboards, or you can pay an unlimited or whatever else. And you can, I like to liken it to the Netflix of dashboards. We have a repository of dashboards, and you can swap in and out as you need for your portal. But going back to the example I was talking about, here's our HPRD by acuity. And so a couple things to point out here up at the top is your average daily HPRD. This is the reported, and my date range here is by pay period. So this is essentially a 2-week period for this facility. And reported essentially is, if you're familiar with a 5-star rating, that's the actual hours. That's the PBJ submitted hours, payroll-based journal submitted hours. The adjusted is the adjustment based upon your case mix. And so what we're comparing this against here, you notice these are in red, the facility historical average. These are historical average based upon what CMS had in your last PBJ submission. So you can kind of see, are you going up? Are you going down? Where are you? Here's your daily census, again, compared to the last CMS data. And then your RN, your LPN, and your aide reported hours, again, compared to historical data. I have the detail by day here, and you can essentially analyze this all in detail. Down here is the trend over that period. And then down here is the overall facility, those acuity sort of key things that require a lot of your aid and potentially LPN time. Then we have it broken down by unit. And you're going to see, so this is a particular neighborhood unit, floor, whatever you might call it in your facility. And again, it's comparing it to the actual whole facility average across all of your floors or units. It's a little bit lower than the overall average. It's giving you the RN, LPN, and aide again. And you can also get your average FTEs. So you know from a staffing perspective how much you're actually, how much you're paying in terms of FTEs as well. Now, again, you can see the units down here, and this is adjustable. So if I click on Tuesday, December 7th, it has these numbers. If I click on another, they will change. And actually, I'm trying to find an actual adjustment. Let's go actually to this Rosewood. I think that one had a better example. Yeah, there we go. If you look at high assist dressing, you notice that they're at 16. Well, as you have ins and outs across, you know, people moving in, moving out, discharges, admissions, you're going to see this adjusts accordingly. So you can see per day level, and you'll also notice up top that my RN, LPN, and aide changes as well. So that gives you a general sense of what's going on here. And so going back to the scenario I mentioned, they were quickly able to recognize while the HPPBD was quite high, all these numbers down here were almost twice what the other floors was. So the schedule was immediately able to make adjustments, move an aide from one floor to another, and balance, and now they are a little bit more happy across the board. The other thing we often see this dashboard use is simply just the scheduler just wants to see what are my PBJ amounts and then adjust accordingly. So yeah, so that's one of our dashboards that sort of unifies. It's unifying not only what CMS has, not only your census, but also your acuity level of your resident population and your timekeeping system as well. So, and in this particular example, they were using Kronos. We work with ADP, we work with Paylocity. There's really, you name the data source, we can usually work with it, so.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, I know that's one dashboard that we found really exciting too with our parent company. Donna, I wanted to ask you a question as well. Just as a customer, you know, with Landis Homes, I understand you've been using the solution for a while now. Could you maybe let us know, you know, what if there's a dashboard that you want the audience to see that has been really valuable for Landis Homes and why, or just kind of give your impressions of how the solution has impacted your organization in general?
Sure. For us, most of our dashboards are clinically oriented. So most of the data dashboards that we purchased evolve around our EMR. And one that's been really valuable for us is the 24-hour report. So we've used this basically as a way to stop Outlook emailing, shift to shift emailing, changes with our residents, saved a lot of time, and pretty much pulls all our data from the EMR to one screen instead of searching resident to resident. So we have most of our nursing leadership as well as our charge nurses and our team leaders in this dashboard. Just gives you an overall general view of just lots of stuff that's hard to find and hard to get out of your EMR. So the nurses log into this every day, pretty much, and quickly can review new falls, new wounds, behaviors that have accelerated. Just a wealth of information.
Yeah.
And if I could interject, actually, so when we think about analytics, this is not so much a traditional analytics scenario, but it's more of a, you know, one-stop shop reporting, but it is real time, it's connecting, and it's unifying. You know, one of the things that happens with EMRs is, you know, you've got your cattle chutes, you've got your care plans, you've got your nurses notes, and you've got your physician orders, you name it. And all of you probably do daily stand-up. It used to be stand-up. Many of you are now sitting down or you're in your own offices. But that time period has extended because of all the data we're collecting and all the different reports or modules that you have to visit it within your EMR to get the data you need. And so this was an opportunity to sort of quickly hit that. They can find what they need and drill deeper in the EMR or even within the dashboard. So.
Right, and I know that the health administrations help us, you know, follow some of the residents' PRN meds or meds that we can make PRN when they're constantly refusing them, or, you know, nurses are holding them for one reason or another. So this tab has been really beneficial as well. Getting them off some of their medications, changing them from scheduled to PRN.
Awesome.
This is a great report for, again, they use it at stand up.
Yeah, I know, you know, the EMRs that we work with, a lot of this information is kind of in different spots. So to see it all tied together and to have that something that, you know, can be unique to your organization, that I can see that as being very valuable, especially at shift change or, you know, just making sure nurses are familiar walking in. We did have a few questions come in. I know I got at least one more question I wanted to kind of pose to you, Keith, but just to get these questions in here really quick while they're on topic. One question that came in was, Donna, which EHR are you all using at Landis Homes? That was a question that came through.
We use NetSmart MyUnity, and again, one of the more difficult things about NetSmart MyUnity is getting the information. You can run tons of reports in there, but you can't tie it together. And so this dashboard has allowed our nursing leadership and even our staff nurses. We have a few staff nurses using this to tie things together.
Cool. Yeah, and Keith, I know you're able to connect with other key EHRs in the industry as well, but yeah, just, you know, for the sake of today's conversation with Donna, it is the MyUnity EHR that's in place today, formerly HealthFinX Vision. One other question that came through from the same resource who asked that question was probably more for you, Keith. With the AWS outage that we had with Amazon yesterday, did that impact DashPoint Analytics at all, or were you guys kind of spared from that?
It's a good question. While we do have web hosts, we actually have two. We have a backup web host on a completely different platform. but we are not on AWS, so we were not impacted by that. That said, you know, this is the world of cloud computing, but we do try and have multiple paths in the case of an outage. So, yeah.
Okay. One other question that came through that I think was the first dashboard that you showed, Keith. What is the source of the labor hours that you had there, and how is that imported into DashPoint Analytics?
So in this particular scenario, we usually, and it depends a bit on your timekeeping system. Some of them we can literally pull directly from the database. Some of them are a scheduled drop, but it's your PBJ information that we try and narrow in on, because that's really what's driving everything. And so that is, in this particular scenario, it was an on-premise Kronos installation. We've done it with Kronos Workforce Central Cloud. We've done it with Paylocity, done it with ADP, and depending on the solution, it can be some variation thereof. But almost all of them do have to submit PBJ somehow, and so we try and tie into that.
Okay, and probably another somewhat related question, and I think we already answered a portion of it where you are working with MyUnity customers, but are you also working with Workday at all as another software?
We do not have any existing clients on Workday, so we have not done that. But this is as good an opportunity as any to just talk about connectors. We use, and to be transparent, this is all backed by Power BI, which has built-in connectors to some 200 different both cloud and on-prem connections. That said, we can also consume, you know, APIs if the software provider has an API. Sometimes it involves a scheduled export. So it really depends on the solution. I have yet to encounter a application that literally refuses to provide any solution for exporting. It's kind of the name of business these days. That might have been the case maybe a couple years ago, but now everybody recognizes, you know, you are working in an enterprise. This is not a standalone solution. So, and you know, we can work with organizations on that. Sometimes we can even, you know, if you sign a letter of agency, we can work directly with your provider and try and get that ironed out. Or if you want to be a bit more in the mix, that's always an option as well. So.
Okay, awesome. And last question from the attendees so far, and I think you kind of touched on this already, but you know, you're able to work with more than one EMR source, and I guess from what I know of NetSmart and you know the how you're getting data from that solution, I know that like Point Click Care and Matrix Care have similar tools that would feed you the data in the exact same way. So
correct.
That's a question I could even answer.
If I can piggyback on that though, we kind of work with the big three, I like to call them, Point Click Care, and of course Matrix Care, and NetSmart, as we mentioned. But all of them provide, their pricing models are all a little different, but they provide some level of analytics, sort of a way to get a copy of your data, and that's usually what we're leveraging against. So.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, and for all of our attendees, you know, keep putting in questions. I'll ask Keith another question I kind of had just to see more of the solution here, but you know, please build them up or watching them as they queue up here, and we'll pose them to the group as we can. But just to kind of look at some of the other dashboards that you have, Keith, I guess I kind of think of this as being kind of a newer topic for senior living. I know that there are dashboard solutions that are out there or that can be part of the EHRs that are out there, but you know, again, they're only looking at just that source of information. When we've been exploring, enterprise-wide business intelligence with our parent company, we've often kind of struggled to know like what is a possibility, just because we need to almost see something in action to understand, where we could actually go with a product like this. Is there another dashboard you can maybe kind of walk us through that may
Sure.
help us frame that up a little bit better and know what kind of information we have at our
Yeah.
fingertips?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll just give an example. Let's do the ADL analysis one here. So there, some of you probably already researched your analytics options. Your EMR provider is probably pushing some analytics options. There's other third-party ones out there, and they all, sort of on feature set. There's a lot of variables to consider. One is, is it real time or is it only working off of submitted MDSs? Is it enterprise? Can you connect to other solutions? Is it something you need a data analyst to figure out how to get data out of? Do you need a data warehouse? There's a lot of different things to consider. But to your question, Steve, I think one of the things that we often see is, analytics is like layers of an onion. You peel one off and you find another insight that you want, and you find another and you find another. And that's why we sort of build our model on a monthly subscription basis, is it allows us to adapt and change as your requirements change. This is not a set in stone. Here's your on the shelf, here's what you have, and good luck with that. We try and provide a level of service on top of that. I'm doing a lot of talking. Let me show you more of the product. Essentially, this ADL analysis is often used by, say, RNACs or MDS coordinators. The idea here is being able to identify changes in condition in real time. You've got your aides hitting touch screens and going crazy, entering every ADL, but oftentimes, traditionally, the RNAC, the MDS coordinator is only gathering that information when their schedule demands it. And so you might not necessarily see changes in condition without, running reports or it comes in just dialogue. Well, this is essentially in real time gathering all that ADL information and scoring them. And we do ADL 3 or RUG 3, RUG 4, we do PDPM. Really depends on your payer mix and what's most important to you. But essentially, you can see a breakdown of every resident. You can see their current RUG score. I can say, let me just see those who are actually seeing a decline in conditions since their last MDS, those who are staying the same, or those who are improving. And then I can actually go in and look at this and do a per resident analysis. So right here we have Eugene Benedict. I can see he had a decline in his self-performance extensive assist. And this is in comparison to his last submitted MDS. Again, real-time information. We are getting the score. We can see he actually had a decline 3 points. And then down here, these radar charts, sometimes they are confusing to people, but the easy thing I like to tell people is red means a decline, blue means an improvement. So we can see there is a red decline in extensive desist of that self-performance in eating, move off of unit, move on unit, and over under the support, I can see transfers and eating. And this is taking into account all of the rules. I can do the late loss, and it's going to essentially do the rule of threes. I don't know how many MDS coordinators are on the call, if any, but it follows the rules that the MDS follows. And so all of that calculation is done in real time for you. Your significant changes, you can see essentially the number of ADLs that are triggering a change, and it's sorted by the most extreme to the least, and you can sort of see the flex, the 0 point right here, how many are improving and how many are declining, because it's not all one direction sometimes. And then you can see your ADL distribution across your entire facility. Again, I can filter it by unit if I want, but I can kind of get a general sense. Okay, I got mostly one person assists here, that kind of thing. So, do we have time to show another one, or are there questions that are coming in?
Why don't you show one more? I got 2 questions so far,
Okay.
and yeah, I'll see if we can get another 1 or 2 to build up here.
Sure. The real-time QM and Casper, I'm sure some people on this call are running the Casper maybe monthly or something else. The problem with this is the Casper, first of all, it's a pain to run. At least in Pennsylvania it is.
Hmm.
And I think what oftentimes you're doing is you're driving in the rearview mirror. These MDSs could be 90 days old, so your quality measures aren't exactly representative of what you're currently experiencing in your resident population. So what we've tried to do is make this real time, so you can see if you were to complete an MDS on every single one of your residents right now in your facility, where are they going to rank on the Casper? What
Hmm.
quality measures are they going to trigger? And then we even do, score prediction. We use a little machine learning, a little artificial intelligence, and it's going to predict your MDS QM rating for the next CMS cycle here. And you can even see your cut point analysis per quality measure to see, okay, with a little effort, we might be in sort of the 5-star category, the green being a 5-star, and we'll get more points, that kind of thing. And then, of course, we have them broken down by each quality measure here. I'll just do pressure ulcers is a bit in flux right now with quality measures, but you can see where you are. You can see who's triggering. You can see where in the chart they're triggering, and then you can see the historical quarter-over-quarter adjustments, the aggregate rating, and the real-time rating. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Awesome. All right, I have a good amount of questions built up now.
okay.
So let me start with the top here, and I think this might just be might be related to some of the other questions that I'm going to go through as well. But in my Unity, so kind of sticking with Donna's example, but where does the data come from? Is that just the MDS, or is it other sources? And are those, if those sources are customized within my Unity, does it still work? So maybe just a better explanation on how
Sure,
you're
sure.
pulling that.
So with my Unity, you'll need a reporting environment set up, and we can talk that through. We've been through it with NetSmart multiple times, and can usually help people if they're not already familiar with that. But essentially, we can hit every level of the chart. If you've done custom assessments, custom forms, as part of the initial discovery, when you come on as a customer, we go through and say, okay, where do you measure
Mhm.
falls? Where do you measure pressure ulcers? Some people will have a very, they do an assessment regularly. It's after every incident. Others, there might be a little more reliance on notes, or there might be orders, or you name it. And that's all part of that initial discovery. And we can touch any one of those and
Mhm.
essentially present it accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, the next question was very similar, and you kind of clarified that you are using the reporting server, but if we're talking about the big 3 EHR vendors, how does that compare to Point Click Care and Matrix Care? They have a similar
Yeah,
solution, right? And it's pretty much the same.
right. So they have a similar, and again, the pricing structure is a little different. But yeah, they essentially will set up a reporting environment. It does not cause a load on your production system.
Hmm.
And that's what we connect against. And I should mention, so we talk about real time. that is also a determination in dialogue with you to determine how fresh do you need this data to be, because obviously the more real time it is, the more performance is impacted. If you're okay, say, just give me the last shift of data, we will set each report or even each particular area, say care plans or whatever, and set the refresh cycle to only pull it in so it's happening maybe at night shift when there's less load or whatever else. So
Okay, perfect. Two-part question from the next attendee, but are there also financial dashboards, or are we, maybe talk to those, but then also, and this is a question that came up a few times, are the dashboards customizable? Can you build your own if you're a customer and you need something specific here?
yeah, so I'll kind of take these in sequence. This is just an example of a statement of operations that we built for a customer. Again, this is all demo data. This is not a real facilities. I just want to say
Not
that.
showing PHI.
But essentially, this is layering in their financial package along with billing being run from their EMR, along with payroll. Sometimes depending how your organization's set up, you might not be bringing over stuff except maybe every payroll run, or monthly you do a month end pool of batch data. We try and get that a little more real time, so you know your cash position and can anticipate before month end what you're going to be looking at. So this is essentially compared to budget. You can do actuals versus last year. I can do revenue trends, and I'm clicking really fast. I apologize, but given our limited time, I can do expense trends, and I can do vendor analysis. You want vendor creep? Look at that, consultants. They'll eat up your entire expense budget pretty quickly. So, and what we find is a lot of customers actually just use this for research. They're just want to search when did this particular transaction happen, and they'll go by that. But then you can essentially do how am I going quarter over quarter, so on and so forth. And I apologize, Steve, I forgot the second part of the question. What was the other question?
That's great. So the other question did come up a few times from a few other resources, but can you also customize these dashboards, or can clients build their own dashboards, or do they need to go through DashPoint Analytics to build brand new ones?
So very good questions. So first of all, I mentioned earlier there's data discovery related to any dashboard. And I would add, like, for instance, Donna had mentioned the 24-hour report. I know for a fact that Landis has maybe 3 or 4 more tabs on here than what's on the demo. So we often will use one of ours as a base and then sort of expand on it. I think they do some life enrichment stuff that they review daily. We add those. In terms of custom from scratch, we do our best to not increase your monthly fee for that, because I've sat on that side of the table and I don't like cost creep. So we try and apply that as part of the monthly fee. Now, obviously, there are certain parameters if it gets a little out of hand. But again, the advantage here is if it's useful to you, there's a good chance it might be useful to others. And so that's kind of the approach we take. And so a little bit of upfront development time on our part helping you could benefit our entire customer base. And I think the other part of your question is, can we bring your own? So maybe you've already done an investment in specifically Power BI. Let's just say that. One option we give you is you're probably paying some licensing costs related to that, and typically it's a per user license. for the IT folks on the call, we are using economies of scale. We are paying per capacity. And so what that allows us to do is it potentially allows you to distribute your Power BI reports more broadly across the entire organization than just, say, a few key users, because you're essentially paying a site license, and then we can distribute that and adjust capacity according to your needs. So we've had customers actually say, we have this Power BI report, it works fine for us. Can you just put it in the portal? And sure thing, no problem. And we'll just roll it over. And then essentially, that brings up the question for some of you, well, how do I manage who can see what? There's a whole admin side to this that allows your IT administration or whoever's administering users to manage who can see what by role or by individual user, as well as, you know, by department, you name it. And essentially it'll aggregate and dynamically create that menu structure on the left so that they see what's appropriate to them. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good segue, I think, into the next question. But does DashPoint Analytics pricing include Power BI licensing, or can you maybe walk us through
Yes, it
a
does.
bit more detail how that works?
Yeah, so we're using essentially what's called Power BI Embedded, which is a capacity-based licensing model, and it's meant for integrators like ourselves to provide Power BI backed reporting at scale.
Okay. And then the last I think I got maybe two more questions. Do you also interface with software called RiskWatch or CareWatch? I know that those are like MDS scrubbing software or risk analysis software. Is that something that?
Right. So there is oftentimes with MDS scrubbers, they're selling their own analytics solutions. So I know I said we can connect with most things, but oftentimes the scrubbers are pretty tight in that area. That said, we can usually hit them at the same point that you're sending it to them. In other words, we can get your MDS and do our own analysis. And the same goes for, say, claims. I think an opportunity that's missed by a lot of people, you know, as we start going into ACOs and you name it, is there can be agreements in place for one payer versus another and certain requirements, and oftentimes it's not lining up with what you're actually your claims are. So there's a lot of missed opportunities for more revenue or whatever else just in simple air checking, and so that gives us an opportunity to address some of those as well.
Okay. And I did just have a another related question come in, but if we already have Power BI licenses, do we still need ones from DashPoint, or how does that potentially work?
Good question. So the only time you would need your own Power BI licenses is having your own licenses allows you to actually get to the data models that we are building on top of. So typically you will reserve those licenses for in-house analysts who maybe want to take what we've done and add their own flair or do their own analysis, do additional, you know, data mashing, for lack of a better term. I will say that most everything, if it can be exported and actually it can preserve the layout that they see on the screen, or it can be in typical row column and I want to slice and dice accordingly. So you do have a lot of export options as well. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is actually data alerts. So maybe you're a user that doesn't really want to sign on to this system all the time. I only want to know when my, you know, HPPD drops below 3.8 or something like that. We can, almost any metric, we can set a data alert so that when that occurs, you get an automated email saying the threshold has been passed. here's a link to the dashboard. And so that helps with things like falls or wounds or you name it. So you're not necessarily dependent upon a certain staff member letting you know that this just occurred, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions around specific ancillary solutions as well. And I think I'm going to hold on those a bit just to see if more of them build up, but maybe that's something I can follow up with an email later on.
Sure.
I did have another question that maybe best for Donna to bring her back into the fold. But Donna, I'm curious if you've had any state surveys since having DashPoint Analytics in place, and if so, how that went. The product helped you in any unique and surprising ways?
Yeah, we actually did. Not very long after we went live with DashPoint, we had a survey, our Department of Health survey, and the very first thing they asked for was a percentage of our residents who had the COVID vaccine. And at that time, the flu, it was back in September. And, of course, people panicked, and DashPoint was able to we just simply, our ID nurse was actually not in the building. And previously we had kept spreadsheets of all this information. So, we just clicked into the immunization. We have an immunization report dashboard, and this was all able, you can narrow down to just COVID and just flu, and, was able to present them quickly with a list of our residents who had the vaccination, as well as the percentage of our residents vaccinated. And also, when the surveyors came in, I believe, we have had some issues in the past with our care planning. So we quickly looked at the real-time Caspers and looked for any of those triggering 3 and above quality measures, and quickly made sure those residents' care plans were all up to date. Any of these triggers here, somebody that was a 3 or a 4, what they triggered, they were all care planned for. And we did have a deficient-free survey.
Nice.
So I think just responding quickly, it certainly did help to have these dashboards.
Yeah. Okay.
And along with that, we do actually have a chart compliance dashboard too. That sort of keeps you able to see things in ongoing. It analyzes your MDS schedule, sees if you missed any. It analyzes your other assessments if they have a schedule, like your Braden's, your whatever else, your touchscreen compliance, your medications compliance, anything that's triggering a potential med alert, and you can really stay on top of things before they get ugly.
Yeah, this was an area that helped us with the process improvement. We saw a lot of regulatory assessments being missed, and so we brainstormed and how to get better compliance. So it did show us some lack of compliance. Did a process improvement project somehow and really helped us get better compliance with our regulatory assessments when it comes to falls, skin, Braden's, those sorts of things.
Okay. That's awesome. Maybe one other question for Donna while we have you, but with you all at Landis Homes already being implemented on the product, if we had other providers who are looking to implement something like this, do you have any advice for them, or anything that you think they need to kind of be mindful of as they look to implement something like this, or how to best make sure that it's continually leveraged?
Yeah, it was quite a challenge. I think my mistake was just kind of like giving them access and saying, here, this is great. This should help you in your roles. And it, in my past, I was, in acute care, and we had used some analytics 10, 12 years ago in acute care. And so, in my mind, it was just a simple rollout. But here it was a challenge. So what we did was implement with each interdisciplinary team. Nurse leadership, then we went to nurse managers, then we went to social workers, and we showed them how the data can really help them make care decisions and improve care. So I think just doing it more slowly,
Yeah.
and starting with maybe 1 or 2 dashboards. I think, Keith, we rolled out like 5 or 6 fairly quickly.
Right. Yeah, I find people don't know what they don't know
Right.
with this. You know, it just looks like a bunch of colored charts at first, and it isn't until you actually start saying, well, this is an insight that you need, let me show you how you do it, and then the light bulbs go off. So
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. I think some of the questions are dying down here. I think there's maybe a couple that we didn't get to yet. And yeah, if I need to revisit those after the call, I certainly will. But I guess they all kind of follow a theme, and I think it's a lot of questions around, what other sources besides the EHR and some of the other products we've already talked about can you integrate with, and can you pull data from? Can you maybe just kind of give us an idea of some of the software out there that you are integrated with? And
sure.
I don't need you to name drop all of them, but maybe just to kind of give us an idea.
That's pretty. We could be here all day.
Yeah.
We try, obviously, the big ones in the industry. We integrate with reps on the CRM side. We haven't even mentioned that. We integrate with Salesforce. There's some that use Salesforce. We integrate with Dynamics, GP, and I'm kind of hitting all over here. Payroll, I'm already mentioned Kronos, ADP, and boy, I'm just trying to think. I would answer this question with let's have a conversation. I think you're going to find that we can connect with most things. And obviously you're not going to pay for something until we can deliver. And so, there isn't too much that with a little elbow grease we can find a way to connect to. So
yeah, for you to have gotten that far, and with some of those names you already mentioned, like that, that alone is huge, and that's something that I think we always kind of found daunting at ProviNET when we kind of thought about business intelligence, whether for a parent company or having an answer to some of our customers who are asking for a thing like that. But you kind of hit it on the head. A lot of these solutions out there, they have a tool or reporting environment or APIs that we can use to connect with, and as long as there's something like that, you take the onus of that as DashPoint Analytics, and it's not on the customer to kind of
right.
just funnel the data into a solution like this. It's a lot more a white glove treatment, it sure seems. Well,
Right.
I did have one more question come in that I think is a really good one, and maybe this can be our last question, but in regards to the implementation of DashPoint Analytics, what is the typical time frame to kind of keep in mind to get from maybe contract signing to actually having some dashboards in place that we could use? If you have any anecdotes around that.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it would of course depend on our prior conversation on what systems we're connecting to. If we've already done it before, it's pretty, we do an initial data assessment, and I would say anywhere from a month to 6 weeks is typical with existing connections. If we have to sort of do new, it can take a little longer. But back to Donna's point, oftentimes we can deliver certain dashboards right out of the gate, and you can start utilizing those right away. And then we just sort of onboard as we get those connections up. And that's a dialogue we'll have with you. Oftentimes there's a burning need. There's something we need right now. Immunizations was a hot one here for a while, and that was what we were leading with. And so those types of things we can prioritize in terms of what we deliver.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think we'll go ahead and close it out from here, but thank you so much, Keith,
Yeah,
for
thank you.
walking us through. Yeah, it's been great having you on and seeing the solution. And thank you, Donna, as well, for kind of, bringing a provider perspective to this as well and sharing your experience with the product.
Sure.
And I want to say thanks to everyone who attended as well and for putting in some really good questions. We are going to make this recording available, so if you need to rewatch this or share it with any colleagues, please keep an eye on our social media. We'll be sure to blast that out so that people can watch it at their leisure. And if there are any questions for Keith or any interest in learning more about DashPoint Analytics, please feel free to email me directly. I can put you in direct contact with Keith. I can, kind of help queue things up as much as I can to make sure that you go into a conversation with him with all the information that you would need available. But I think a lot of the attendees on here may know me already, but just in case not, my email is Stephen with a V followed by a V, so stephenv@provinet.com. But we'll reach out to everybody. We have your email addresses from registering and everything too. So thank you everyone for making time to talk today. I think it's been a great webinar, lots of fun connecting with everyone and going through these questions, and we'll look forward to the next one. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.